Is this your first show in the Netherlands?
It's not my first show in Netherlands, but it's my first headlining show in Amsterdam.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a big deal always because
Yeah.
like Amsterdam is one of the. Do you see it as one of the also big entertainment hubs of Europe?
Yeah, there's a few artists from here that I used to like and follow.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any
Uh,
examples?
yeah, I mean, recently I really like Sevdaliza. I don't know if she's from Amsterdam, but I think she's in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
I really like what she does.
Mm-hmm.
And I think back in the days I used to cover the band The Gathering.
Okay, yeah, I know that one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I don't know if they're from the city, but yeah.
Are there some people you're looking to? I mean, are you looking to collaborate maybe with some Dutch artists? Because you mention always that people always say, yeah, you're a Tunisian singer, but you consider yourself a global person.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people these days, maybe because we're not really held by borders, and especially with social media and such, so it's easier to get in touch with.
Yep.
So, are you looking to work with a bunch of artists from different countries? You don't limit yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to. I think the more collaborations there is in the artistic field, and not necessarily between music artists, but other forms. Like I really love dance and contemporary dance. And there's a few artists. I think there's an artist that he's based here, Sidi Larbi Sherkawi. I think he's based here. Or maybe in Belgium. I'm not sure. But I think, yeah, definitely collaborations are something that can enrich artists themselves and their audiences.
Okay, so I'm gonna take it back here. So the first time I read your name, you were on the list of I managed to get a scene, and our band got on this list for believe it was Hype, and that's when I saw your name the first time, and I was listening to all the people on the list, and yours was came the closest to them in the sense of you use Arabic, incorporate Arabic sounds with Western electronic sounds with spit dark as well. And then when I mentioned I'm going to interview you, my artist said, "Oh, I saw her in 2012 in the amphitheater in Amman, in Jordan."
Yeah,
And that was the first time I thought it was
2013.
really cool. So from then, could you walk us through what happened? Like you had the Tunisian Revolution,
Mhm.
and then can you walk us through what happened there and how it got discovered and how it started?
So I released my first international album in 2012, and then I toured with it worldwide, 2012 and 2013. It's an album that I have been writing from 2008 until 2009, 2010, and in 2010 I started working on the production. And then the revolution came, and then the album was released, and there were a lot of connections because a lot of the songs that I wrote on this album were about revolution from the early years before the actual movement, the actual first spark started. I was really working on trying to develop mentalities and awaken consciences in people in order to believe in themselves and trust their ideas. And after that, so I toured for some time, and in the meantime, I moved to New York, and I had a baby, and started working on my, thank you, and I started working on my second album, where I think I pushed my sound further and really opened myself to this world that's very cinematic and also electronic, and a lot of it was also inspired by North African tribal rhythms and instruments. And then I toured with that as well. And then in the summer of 2016, I started, before the last album was released, I started work on this new album. And for this new album, I decided to write in English, to explore another side of myself, and probably the side that I really see the most of myself in. But this time, there's not much North African instruments or Oriental influences. It's mostly just, world
Yeah.
worldwide album, and even more cinematic than the one before. But I think the biggest inspiration on the album and the biggest source of music was nature.
Nature, yeah. And that's very evident in the music videos you're doing. It's always open spaces, there's a lot of nature in there. And the colorful shows, which we'll get to in a bit. But I wanted to touch upon this whole, because you did your album in English, and do you think that's like a way for also Middle Eastern artists or artists from anywhere outside of the West maybe to break through in the West? Like, what is the biggest struggle you found maybe in breaking through to the West, and what are you doing about breaking through?
I think the biggest struggle is to be able to just be ourselves, because I feel that there's always this definition that's ready to be put on us.
Yeah, like labels.
Exactly. And even like beyond labels, it's really like the way to define yourself. And I think that's a very important self-expression, and I feel very oppressed sometimes when I feel that I can't define myself through my music and through my self-expression. But I feel that there's expectations, so a lot of the time your only choices is to navigate between stereotypes, misrepresentation, or invisibility. So I found it very challenging, especially for me, that with the name that I'm carrying and the heritage. I feel that a lot of the times the Western medias, they're always expecting me to be fulfilling their own exotic idea of who I could be. Like I have to carry a flag, the flag of my country, of my ethnicity, and when there's no exotic expectations, it's political expectations. So I have to always talking about politics, and I think everything is about politics one way or the other, but I don't have to be a political reporter. I'm a musician. And I'd like to just help people to see me as I am and as I'm singing. So maybe this album in English was a way for me to break the boundaries, so that there's no more false excuses.
Yeah.
For people to stop, because usually, even when people I'm not talking about people, because audience is such a broad concept, and I feel that the audiences can't, even if they can have expectations, you can just stand and sing and play, and then they can only consume and vibrate with what you're offering them, and it's true and it's raw. So there's no artificial anymore, but it's with the medias, unfortunately, that sometimes they would just stop with the language, and they don't. So that way, for me, it was a way to make myself more transparent.
Because in a way, being discovered in a political sphere and having a political album did give you a boost, but at the same time, that's not what you're about necessarily. You don't want to only write political, because you're not a political artist, let's say. Maybe just an artist who's expressing herself in many ways, not just about politics.
Yes, exactly. So like it seems as if those events have fabricated a persona, and that persona is that only. But actually, I fabricated the events, and I fabricated the
interesting.
persona that accompanied what happened. Like I worked on the revolution theme much ahead of when the revolution happened. I didn't even think that a revolution would happen, but I'm not gonna stop there. For me, the revolution is a very broad theme, and it can be explored and expanded in many different spheres.
And so you mentioned your album, the first one you worked on since maybe 2008. You were working on a very long period of time. And what I noticed with artists, usually when you give them all the time and they're working on their passion project, basically, it comes out to be really good. So the first project is hard to follow up because then you get the pressures, and then you get the pressure you have to produce and they have to release an album now. So do you deal with those pressures? How do you deal with it? Does it influence you? I mean, what I'm saying is probably, is it affecting you creatively, negatively, or?
I think the biggest pressure that is put upon me is my own pressure, because I'm a very ambitious person. I'm a very ambitious artist, and I try to remain curious, and I try to explore other forms of art around me. I try to go see shows, and it's not only like listening to other music, but also see art and dance and exhibitions and movies, and that helps me. That helps, I think, my ambition stay quite interesting and quite high. So I put the pressure on myself to be able to innovate, and not only innovate in my own field, in my own thing, but innovate in a way that I hope my music would still be valid and relevant many years from now.
Yeah, because the music sphere, I feel, has been changing a lot quicker, at a quicker rate than it has been in the past. Where now every year there's a trend, and every year there's a trend. And you mentioned
6 months. Even
6 months, yeah. I mean, and you mentioned on that interview on Al Jazeera that I watched, and you were saying a lot of times you get booked. You feel like you get booked because you are. It's a topic now, women and Muslim women artists and stuff like that, and that is a bit frustrating, maybe.
Well, sometimes I get these bookings in wonderful places and good festivals, and I get very excited because I'm like, okay, my music has crossed over, and then I see like the theme of the year is actually Islamic arts or revolution voices, or which I don't mind. I'm very proud and happy to be part of any movement, and I identify with so many different things. And I'm not ashamed of any parts of my culture is like so diverse, but that's not what I want to only be. I also want to be just recognized as an artist, or sometimes even like a pioneer, because I think I'm offering something very new to the global music.
Yeah, no, I don't think there's anyone who's quite doing what you're doing, honestly, and that's why I was really excited to have you on the show as well, because it's a new genre, maybe, because genres aren't really genres the way they used to be. You can be, there's no name for it anymore. You just do multiple songs. I think someone like modern Post Malone maybe also was doing this. The hip-hop heads are angry at him for culturally appropriating hip-hop, but he's not just hip-hop. He does all kinds of music. Go into rock, it doesn't matter. There's no borders anymore, and that's what's nice about it. To me, what's interesting is the way people are incorporating all these world musics, adding these Western elements maybe to make it a little bit more appealing to a wide audience. But why limit yourself? Because that's what's creating great art right now.
Yeah, exactly. And one of my biggest inspiration is Kanye West, because when he produces, he's in contact with so many different people from so many different spheres, from electronic music world, and he incorporates all these different samples, sometimes like from world music, sometimes from church music. And
that was a gospel album.
Yeah, it's for me. It's like 360 degrees. You know, like
Yeah.
it's sometimes at times it's dark. At times it's like very introvert, and sometimes it's like very pop. Sometimes it's gospel, and that's how I see music, because I grew up listening to classical European music like Beethoven,
Okay.
and then Louis Armstrong, and like old jazz and blues, and then some 30s from the 1930s Tunisian Jewish music. So I feel like I'm a mix. And then when I started making my own choices, I used to be very fond of Celine Dion, and then I moved to metal, and then I used to also perform and cover Alanis Morissette and The Gathering, and so I just like it was a little bit too much, but
A lot. But you notice, I mean, you draw inspiration from everyone, and it doesn't, you don't have to sound like these people. You can take some elements, maybe in your brain it clicks like, oh, I think this style could work with that, and it's a mix.
This I when I started my metal band, I felt that.
Wait, what year was that? That was in
it
school?
was in the early it was in the early 2000s. It was like my first time being a singer on stage, and we started doing like these shows. But I felt there were strong connections between goth and metal music and classical European music, which are from like completely different eras. But I always feel that there's like some common soul to it, and I carry both souls with me today in the music that I do now. So it's like very interesting. And also in Tunisia we have a lot of we have this instrument that's the bagpipe, which is a Celtic instrument. So there's gotta be like somebody who traveled from one part to the other. I don't know who inspired.
Do you always start researching like who where that came from? You find it interesting to see?
Not really, but it's a very interesting connection, and somehow sometimes people say that my voice is a little bit Celtic, or some of my melodies.
With the high notes, the soulful,
Yeah, so in the end, like those things are just more powerful than us, and that's a very beautiful message, especially in the seas that we're traveling nowadays, with all like people back to being conservative and back to being a little bit racist, and back to be a little bit like closed, and rejecting.
Yeah, people are scared of the unknown, is what it is, I think.
Exactly, but music explores that and exposes like the unknown, and after all, it's not that unknown, because it's just like it travels from one heart to the other. So I feel like that's why it's the the most truthful thing.
It's the purest form of art, I guess.
Yes.
And I wanted to ask you about your upbringing in Tunisia. You said you had it's quite liberal, actually. There you have factions in Tunisia. You have conservatism, but then you also have a liberal people, the way it is in Jordan, the way I was raised as well. It's like people don't often see the very liberal side of things. Did you watch Jinn on Netflix for any chance?
No, I didn't.
No.
I heard of it, and I was planning to watch it, and then I totally forgot. So thank you for reminding me. I have to.
Yeah. So not necessarily the story. So I have a lot of critiques on the story, honestly. But what I found really interesting, and I think that was their goal, was exploring that side of the culture that people don't usually see, or that maybe a lot of conservatives try to hide, of an open-minded culture, and the youth that goes out, they do party, they do drink, and all such things. And it created this backlash where people were commenting and saying it like exposed hypocrisy a bit.
Yes.
Because people were like, yeah, I can't relate to this. This is my upbringing. I can't relate to the old Arabic movies. And then others came out like, no, this is not an accurate representation of Jordanian culture. You're ruining us, and giving it bad reviews and all. So you see, there's all this struggle, right? And how did you experience that maybe growing up?
Yeah, I mean, like, in the end, like, this is all, so much hypocrisy, because the human being likes to party. Every human being likes to, enjoy themselves and like enjoy sex, and enjoy, like whether boys who like boys, or, boys who like girls. Like
It
in the
happened,
end,
yeah.
behind curtains, everybody does the same things, and
Yeah.
everybody has the same aspirations. But somehow, like, we try to hide that, and I think it's also due to because the societies in the world have always been controlled by men, and still to this day. So I feel like the day we will achieve parity and like women will be completely in control, 50-50 in every field, I think the world will be much brighter. And the world will be much more equal to everybody.
That's interesting. Saying that because you say the patriarchy, maybe
Yes.
the male controlled world is
Yes.
what ultimately, if you go back, does lead to the heavy conservatism, right?
Yes.
Because it's all about there's the double standard.
Yeah.
Like men are doing something, they're hooking up with a girl, it's fine.
Yeah.
Girl does it and she gets shunned.
Yeah.
Right? Especially in those societies. In that sense, I think you might find it interesting, actually, Jin. Because it exposes that.
I'm actually, yeah.
Ignore the story, I would say.
Yeah,
Maybe you like it, I don't know.
Yeah,
but,
it's because it's the same things in Tunisia,
Yeah.
There's like this project that I might work on about this cafe somewhere like in the Middle East, and there's people from different cultures, people from countries, and like it's this nightlife, and you have like many stories happening at the same time. And it reminds me many clubs in Tunis when I used to live there, and like this club where there's bands playing every night, and every night there's a different style of music, and then you see this microcosm of these young people, and like somebody is just breaking up, somebody making out, somebody enjoying themselves, somebody like being in trance, and in the end that's what life is about. You want to you want to enjoy and express your inner self and create. And I think art is the only thing that can save the human soul.
Yeah. Well, people always, they judge these people for what they watch and what they listen to, I guess. And that's the root of it all. And I feel bad for these. Like, I feel bad for the people that do suppress themselves out of fear, who are always the most vocal ones about not oppression, I want to say, about being conservative, because they'd enjoy this music and this movie. They do behind closed doors, but they can't admit it. So yeah, so you grew up in that culture where it's a mix between there's conservatism and liberal. How was it? When did you realize that your aspirations for music, that you could make something out of it?
I think I've always been strongly connected to art, and I've always wanted to express myself through art. So it has always been somehow obvious to me that that's the thing that I was born to do, and that's the thing that I'm the most 100% myself, and that's the thing that I'm most efficient, and that's the thing that will help me connect with other people and help people bring the best part in themselves from a very early age.
Okay, and because I can understand if you're growing up there, you have musical ambitions. You're not sure that you can make a living off it at that point. Did it take moving to? Is it when you moved to Paris that you really felt that there were opportunities there, or also in Tunisia?
I started playing shows with my metal band, and then I decided to start my own path. So I learned to play guitar, and then I started playing my own shows, and I really felt there was a lot of encouragement. I felt that crowds really liked what I liked. So I felt that if I continue to do what makes me passionate and what makes me very emotional, I think I'm on the right. I'm on the right side of things, and so I explored that, and then I started writing my own songs and started having musicians, and I had a few opportunities here and there in small theaters in Tunis, and I really felt the same thing. I felt that I had a power and I had a talent that really was special. And I, little by little, I believed more and more in myself. And then eventually I started feeling that I really had to travel abroad. I really had to go to Paris,
Okay.
which was the closest opportunity to me and to most of Tunisians.
And the language at that point.
Yes, of course. It's the
Because
language,
you
it's the
didn't, did
culture.
you speak English then? Well, like
Um,
fluently, or?
I mean, I studied English at university, but and I sang a lot in English. Actually, that's the language that I started singing in mostly. Um, but I wasn't really fluent in English speaking. It was just I knew how to have a conversation,
Yeah.
but mostly I knew how to sing really well in English, and that was a language I really liked to sing in. And then eventually I found my own thing in writing in Tunisian and writing Tunisian lyrics, and sometimes in Arabic, which was also literary Arabic. We studied it at school, and I have a good. I'm good at Arabic, so I started like creating my own thing and singing my own songs. But eventually, I think English was always somehow part of me,
Yeah.
and the most of the music that I was influenced by.
Yeah, that's the thing. But what do you think was your turning point? Maybe like the point where you really broke through and really went after this 100%. Because there was also this is after you were already touring, but the Nobel Peace Prize. Did you think that played any role as well, or?
In me singing in English?
No, in just in breaking through as a global artist, maybe.
Yeah, I think definitely. Well, my first album and the connection. I mean, the strength of the artistic project that I was presenting to the world. My talent, my voice, my performance. So I think that really there were 2 years where it really exploded, and I was performing all over the world. And then definitely the Nobel Peace Prize performance really, like, I think it just added something that's always going to be there.
Yeah, it's a stamp. But how did that happen?
I just received an invitation from the Nobel Peace Prize Center in Oslo. I think I was really particularly, I was a little bit skeptical because I've never heard of something such the Nobel Peace Prize concert.
Oh, okay.
I know the Nobel Peace Prize.
Oh, it was a separate, it wasn't at the awards itself?
So it was, for me personally, it was two things. Usually the Nobel Peace Prize holds a concert the day after the ceremony, where they invite artists to perform on the big stage.
Yeah.
And so initially I was invited for that, but then they said that they also wanted me to perform at the ceremony.
Oh,
which was, I think it was the first time that they invite an artist, because usually they have classical music and opera.
Yeah.
I mean, soprano. Usually it's like very classical type of performance. And I think that was the first time that somebody had the idea of having like a performer that had connections to the prize itself. So I was invited to perform at Town Hall and at the ceremony, which was a little bit stressful to me because I usually don't like performing at events that are not concerts. So I was worried that people wouldn't receive my performance the way it should be received, but
because people are maybe doing their own thing and distracted, or
well,
you were scared of being a bit background music in a way, or
yes, I was scared of that, but also I figured that it was too much strict and too much like prestigious.
Yeah.
And for me, music
like
is
old man. Old white man music.
For me, music is everything but prestigious, and I think that's one of the performances that I'm the most proud of, because I was super stressed, and I came on stage, and there were like these big hall of people sitting and just waiting for me to open my mouth, and my performance was going to be in Arabic. And so it's a language that they don't know. Yeah. It's a kind of music that they don't know. It's a song that they don't know. It's not like, You know, when John Legend, for example, performed a few years later, where people know John Legend.
That's crazy, right? That you just had the same stage, basically.
Yeah,
as John
I was
Legend.
first.
You were first, exactly, before John Legend.
So it was like a lot of things to outcome. And also I had a 12 inch or 12 centimeters high heels from the greatest fashion designer of all times, Azadine Alaya. May he rest in peace. So it was like a lot of new things to me. But then we did
just
like
went
this.
all out. Just whatever.
We did this like I think the best version of Kelmti Horra, the song. We did the best version of it, like it was like a 9 minutes version long, very psychedelic with electric guitar and like, you know, a little bit like it was out of this world. And I really felt it was a powerful rendition, and I was very inspired because people were completely silent and they were really 100% all ears in receiving. And that's the most beautiful thing when, you know, music comes, you know, from a stranger with a strange form, and then the receiver just receives the emotion of it. And
because your show is not just it's not just a musical performance. You have a theatrical production almost, and no matter how big the venue is, and sometimes the smaller venues as well, it just always has the same theme, but it's always very dark. You got the fire, you get the red and stuff, but it's always like a show, and it evokes some sort of emotion where I notice like people are just silent through it because you're just visually and by ear also being stimulated. And I wonder, what's the thing that you want people to take away from your show? Like, what's the emotion or the experience you want them to take away from your shows?
I think I want people to allow themselves to travel in their purest emotions, in their purest state of soul, and to not have any expectations. And if they feel like dancing, they can dance. If they feel like standing, they can stand. For me, like it's a very free collaborative moment. It's not just I like to create this this strong and intense energy, but at the same time I'm in a deep connection with my audience. But I also like to create this big bubble. I want the show to be like a whole thing, you know, like you said, something like being in a movie.
Mm-hmm. So that when you leave, you have this feeling that like, oh, now I'm back in the real world, you know?
Exactly, yeah.
That's
I want to like, you know, put the real world aside and have something that's like, you know, in connection between earth and sky. You know, like something kind of
supernatural
elevation.
Okay, yeah, elevation. That's that's the right word to do. What is oftentimes, you know, when you work for yourself, and I struggle with this sometimes. When you have your own business, you're self-sustained. What keeps you motivated? Like, what really motivates you? What keeps you waking up every day thinking, yes, I'm looking forward to this day?
That's a big question.
I know it's something like everyone struggles with and everyone deals with differently, and everyone's still searching for that answer. But I think a lot of the viewers and listeners also can take away.
I think being an artist, a musician, is something to look forward to every day. Like, I look forward to record a new song. I look forward to have inspiration. I look forward to write, to compose. I look forward to be with my musicians. I look forward to collaborate with people. I look forward to be on stage. I look forward to be on tour. Sometimes it's tough because, especially nowadays where everything is about numbers and all your worth is numbers, so it's pretty much capitalism,
likes,
you know,
views.
Exactly. So
it's even worse now than it used to be then. It used to be numbers, and now it's
much
you have to be on
worse.
All social
like
platforms and
it's even much worse than 2 years ago.
Like,
I feel like when I released my last album, it was a completely different reality. Like when you I mean, your audience have an easier way to trace you and to like follow what you do. But nowadays, even your own audience and your own fans platforms are like surrounded with many other things that for me are noise, such as like, you know, cat videos, and you have to compete with with a fight video, and
Nobody can compete with those. Those are always gonna get the most views. Because Instagram was experimenting with this at some point, where they removed the likes that people couldn't see. You could see the likes you had, but other people couldn't see the likes on the posts. Because, you know, it creates a lot of social pressure on normal humans as well, where there's been a lot of people self-esteem issues.
Absolutely.
There's been suicides because of it.
Yeah, because you have this fake reality where everything looks perfect, and everything looks good, and you know, I think people they should distance themselves, and nothing should be personal. You know, like when I release a video that doesn't get as much likes as when I released another stupid photo. You know, I try to like not have doubts, you know, in my abilities and my own, you know, artistic proposals, and try to just navigate and try to also be selective and just use it. I think Instagram is a great open free gallery where you can strongly connect with other artists and get a lot of strong inspiration.
And it's important to you can connect with people a lot more easily. It's an open platform, so it must help you professionally as well.
I think it's connect with people is now like very questionable, because it's more as like checking on people and see what people are doing and see if, you know, what you're doing, and but I think people can like go beyond that and really just get access and easier access to art. When you can go to see a movie, when you can go see an exhibition, you can find all of that on social media. So we have to, I think, be smart about our own use of social media.
Okay. Yeah. Because are there things that you consciously don't post?
Yeah, I mean, I don't like being a doll and just post photos of my face 500 times a day, or like even post 1,000 photos of my own face at a show. Yeah. I try to like have a concept. I try to have a personality that's, you know, down to earth, and I really try to share like the things that I find powerful and that can add to people's lives into my own life, rather than just having it be about my physics and the way I dress, the way I consume, and the way I'm like tanned, and the way I have the great chance to be at the beach when it's December. I think a lot of people brag.
Making your life look better than it is, like everyone's trying.
Or just sometimes I am against bragging or like my office for the day, or like the view from my office. And even if you have the great opportunity to have a great office, I don't think it's nice to brag on social media, because it's not healthy.
People not want to show off.
You know, you shouldn't be in love with yourself, I think, too much.
No, okay. That goes for life in general as well. So you became a mother.
Mm-hmm.
And then how has that changed you personally, as well as maybe creatively, or your career as an artist? Has it influenced you in any way?
I'm not sure. I don't know. It's certainly, you know, it's like one among other things that participate in my brain growth and my maturity. I think what I like about growing older is becoming more mature and more gaining more confidence and gaining more assurance, and also gaining more. I think I'm more and more. How to say that? I forgot the word. Like
Maybe
to have more courage to go further and
Is it because
and try
you're
new
working
things.
for them?
Sorry?
Is it because you feel like you're also now working for them and they're the top priority, the kids?
I wouldn't say like sometimes they are the top priority. Sometimes I think you have to find a balance, but your kids can't be the absolute top priority like 100% of the time because it's not true because we are human beings and I do have goals and I have a career and also your top priority has to be a mother, succeed in being a mother, but also try to succeed to be a woman, try to succeed to be a daughter, try to succeed to be a wife, a good artist, a good friend, a good sister. So there's, I think the top three has to be mother, wife, woman / artist. And
no boxes.
It
You
depends.
don't have to be put in a box.
It depends. 1 week you are better, like you can't be good at these things all the time.
You got to balance your professional life and your personal life and all that while trying to grow. Because now I feel like you're in the prime of your career where you're getting the busiest and booked the most, I guess. And
I think I think this album. I wish that I would have gotten here earlier. Because now I really feel like this is really who I am, and I feel like I'm just getting started. So I think I'm really getting to a point where it is the most interesting that I've ever done. Yeah.
But I mean, there's no timing on this. Like it's you got here now. You just have to take it step by step. I guess that's what we can take away is that. Life has no timing. Like people always say you have to be maybe stable by 30, you have to be married by this age or whatever, but that's not the case. And especially these years nowadays in the in the 2000s, late 2010s, there's no like everyone's priorities have changed.
Yeah.
Everyone's path has changed. This whole stigma is being removed. Do you feel that as well?
Yeah, definitely. Like I feel I'm 360 degrees different than when I started singing,
Yeah.
like over 10 years ago. But I don't know. Some people like know exactly what they're doing from like their first album, and then I don't know. I think it's good to be more relaxed about time and just not care and just like the most important is to remain relevant, with your time and yourself.
Yeah. Do you have any guilty pleasures that you want to share in terms of music or TV shows or whatnot?
Yeah, I do have some guilty pleasures like everyone else. I like sometimes to watch for the 100th time one of Friends episodes.
Okay, yeah, no, but everyone has that guilty pleasure. Nobody admits it.
Or to like revisit very old TV shows like Breaking Bad.
Oh, that's not a guilty pleasure, I believe. Breaking Bad is cool.
Or watch like a stupid French sitcom on the road.
But no reality TV or anything. Or do you watch really? I mean, I don't mean the singer-songwriter stuff, but maybe the trashy TV shows. I
like to listen to some very cheesy pop stuff sometimes. Like I watched this movie Teen Spirit in the plane.
Oh, okay.
And I just like the soundtrack. There's Robin and there's Grimes that are not things that I would listen to normally, but I think...
then you're in the plane just bobbing your head and going
yes,
crazy.
Exactly,
and then you always have the excuse that the plane didn't have much choice. So I just had to watch this movie,
No, I like the plot because, it reminds me of the opportunities that I didn't have, like it reminds me of how I felt when I was starting and how like people around me would say that I really have a beautiful voice and that, I'm really going to have a big career. But at the same time, like I was dreaming to go and, sing at a contest and be discovered, and things didn't exactly happen like that. I had to discover myself on my own, but I like it's beautiful, like when you're young and you feel like you're like a very outcast, and nobody can understand you, and when you sing and you become a different person.
That's usually when people join metal bands, and my first, I don't even listen to it right now, but I used to be in a punk rock band as well, and it was this whole
that's great,
but it was a bit of maybe a false sort of rebellion, because we weren't really that rebellious, maybe just because our school was super conservative, so we felt rebellious.
I think it's very healthy to be in metal bands. I think it's the healthiest thing, because that's
release
how
your emotions. And
every young person has to be rebel. Like, I used to be very angry at my classmates, and that they would go to school every day, and I was never able to get them out and just go and explore the world. I think it's not healthy when you're growing up and going to high school to not rebel, over, because like the system and the models that we're pushed to be and are not necessarily like the rightest thing.
No, what do you think about these schools? In the States, there's a lot of schools that are now completely anti. You can't even yell at someone anymore. It's super like, we don't want any conflict at all. But then when these kids leave the schools into the real world, they're gonna struggle, because you're put in this little institution where nobody's allowed to even say anything mean to each other, and then you go outside and you read Instagram comments.
Well, it's very it's difficult for me, because the school that I know, like a lot of the times you were scared from the teacher, and like there's a lot of like dictatorship.
That's the other extreme.
So, exactly, it's the other extreme, and well, I think during those times, kids weren't that much mean to each other. I think we're all like, we're struggling a lot with authority. So
stick it
somehow
to the man.
We didn't have like the brain to like really go wild. I mean, of course, there were a lot of mean things like later on when you get older, and like people like teaming against you, and everybody. So I agree. Like I think school should be like a good environment for children to express themselves, and not like be bullied, and because I do share like bullying is very bad.
Bullying is really bad, and it goes to a lot of extremes now, where kids just, because they live on the internet, basically, they don't even realize that these are real lives they're affecting, and they think like, it's just, you start feeling like a life is like a movie or something, and that's where
I think
it's
internet
getting worse now, because now you got the internet bullying and psychological bullying more than the physical. Which
I think internet is a very bad thing for young people. I mean, if I can, I would not give my daughter the opportunity to have a social like media thing before she's 18, and even like a mobile before she's 18, because I think it's not necessary.
No, it
actually
isn't. And when I think back, it wasn't necessary. I would get my parents' mobile when I would go to the mall, and but then again, you have to find the balance, because they want to be, because they need to be connected to their friends, and they all have it, and they say, "Mom, but my friend has a social media and she has a phone."
It's very tough.
Like I mean,
for me, it's scary. As a parent, it's really scary, because I see now there's like, even in TV shows, you see kids having mobiles since they're 6 years old, and I don't think it's healthy.
And they're not $20 cell phones; they're $400, $500, $600 cell phones.
Exactly.
Like, you're not potty trained, and your phone costs more than the car I drive to work with.
Or your iPad, yeah. My first mobile phone, I was 21, and that's because my mom was very strict, and guys couldn't call me at home. So I had to have my own social life. So I had like this Ericsson phone, which looked more like looked more like a remote control. But it was perfect, like it was like it occupies your whole face, and you hear very well. And I could change the face of it, like where the numbers were. I could change it red or yellow or green. So
those were the things back in the day. That was,
Nokia 3310.
That was my next phone.
That was the best.
Is that the one that doesn't break?
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's the one that I had. That one. Yeah. That was my first one. Lastly, Well, we can go on forever, but what is a song that you wish you had wrote? Someone else released that you wish you had wrote?
Oh, I know that.
Uh,
There's many of them.
you can name as many as you want.
I think I wish I wrote the song Bad Guy from Billie Eilish. Or
now we're going,
yes.
really modern.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I wish that's such a efficient song. It's like awesome.
Yeah, and she's one of those people that broke boundaries now in her music style as well. She's not in a box either.
Yeah. I really like her.
That's also what she wears. She says, right, where she wears the baggy clothes and everything. She says, I don't want to be judged by my physique or whatever.
Yeah,
Just doing her thing.
It's awesome. I mean, unfortunately, not every young person like that can become what she became, because obviously there's always like something behind the scenes where you have like stronger connections. But it's a very it's like when Sinead O'Connor, became who she became. It's like super refreshing for people. Like it's normal. I also wish there's a song that I sing and that I wrote Arabic lyrics on. It's originally like a gypsy song, I think, from the movie Vengo. I think it's originally actually a very old Greek song. It's called Nasi en Alamo, and I wrote lyrics in Arabic, Nasi in Palestina, which I became really known for, and people really love to listen. So I wish I actually wrote the music of that song. It's it's one of the most beautiful songs ever, that I feel like everywhere I go, people really, really love it. Like when I sing it on stage, it's like this moment, wow.
Because it evokes a certain emotion.
Yeah,
That's why...
yeah, there are songs that are like extremely powerful.
Right. That's for sure. So... is there anything you would like to say or to promote still yourself?
Well,
anything
go
you're
listen
working
to
on
my
now?
new album, Everywhere We Looked Was Burning. See my 3 videos that I released from this album on my YouTube channel, Emel, with Emel Mathlouthi. And that's it.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you coming through.
Thank you so much.